our second interview of the evening, and this guy is no slouch in the music business. We have a very special guest making his Animal House radio debut. Fantastic artist with an incredible voice, once you listen to his music, you'll say, "Damn, you know what, Carlo, you were right." Please welcome for the first time on Animal House Radio, Mr. Ashton Nyte.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you.
Good evening.
Ashton, I have so many questions for you. I don't know where they've been hiding you. I did my homework. You have 7 solo albums, one as Ashton Nyte and the Accused, and then I think 9 with the
Awakening.
Yes, the Awakening. And I'll tell you what, and shame on me for not finding out about you sooner, but my first exposure to you was the Heroes video by David Bowie. Dude, that your voice sends chills. I swear to God, it sends chills up my spine, and I am blown away by your vocals. Blown away.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sounds like the set. You mean there's 2 distinct influences I hear when I listen to you. Definitely David Bowie, which I know you're greatly influenced by, but I sense Peter Steele from Typo Negative.
Yeah, I think you'll, especially with the Awakening. Awakening, which is the band I started in the late '90s, and you would find a little Peter Steele in the mix there for sure. It was a gothic rock band, so you can't really go gothic rock and not rub shoulders with Peter Steele, so to speak. And many influences. It really just depends on what I'm doing. The new solo album, the latest one, which I put out with a book, it's I guess a more intimate arrangement, more sort of stripped down. What did one person say? Haunting acoustic minimalism. I think that
right.
Summed it up.
But there are some epic arrangements on the album. You run the gamut of different types of arrangements on that album. That's the new album, Waiting for a Voice, right?
Yeah. It's no, definitely. I think I wanted to capture a cinematic quality with it. So you can do that with one instrument. Oh, there we are. Everything.
Yeah, this is one, and I thank you. I thank you on behalf of us here, and thank you and Damon Smith for sending us the album. We're renovating the studio. We're gonna hang it up. It's really cool, and like I said, I've listened to it's phenomenal. Dude, I don't know where you got your voice from, but it's just amazing.
Thank you. I was saying just before I joined, there's a massive rock that I brought with me from Johannesburg, which I've kept in the back garden, and that's where I've been hiding under all these years.
Carlo texted me about this interview, and he's like, you gotta hear his version of Heroes, because I'm new to your sound as well. And the first thing I thought about your version is it's one of the few covers that I think is better than the original.
Oh.
You got Hello Hooray from Alice Cooper, LA Woman from Ripped, and now this.
Yeah.
Really a nice job. And I love I guess the tempo's slower and it's acoustic, and it's just it gives it something deep. And you didn't lose the song either, if that makes any sense.
I mean, that's massive praise. I mean, I am a huge David Bowie fan, as is probably evident. And I think originally I just wanted to honor an artist that's been such a huge influence on me, both in all my creative endeavors. And then in February this year, my father passed away.
Sorry.
Thank you. And we went back, because I'm from South Africa originally, we went back to help my mom with everything. And Heroes was one of the 2 songs he wanted played at the funeral. So the other was Van Morrison's Ballerina, and I do a much better David Bowie than I do Van Morrison.
I don't blame you there.
In fact, we actually mentioned this at the memorial, that Van Morrison in the early days of family life used to be quite a dividing force, because when Dad wanted peace and quiet, he just needed to put on Ballerina by Van Morrison and everyone in the house would flee to a different room, you know. And in later years, I've appreciated it, but I think in my youth I didn't quite understand Van the Man, as my dad called him. So yeah, so with that happening, I felt compelled to include the song on this album. It was, you know, other than that, it's an original work, and I wanted it to be fiercely original because the writing is so intimate and so personal on this album. But in keeping with that, it felt completely true to that idea to include the song because of the reference to my dad, and then of course, and the loss we've all felt since David Bowie passed, and then of course it's a song of hope, and I think we can all do with as much hope as we can get, right? So
now, obviously, you have a great voice, but is that song "Heroes" a challenge vocally? For like the normal, I mean, you're above. I think you're above average, well above average with your voice. But for anybody, and Steve, you can weigh in on this. Is that a vocally challenging song for anyone to?
I think it was interesting what he did with it. Ashton, you dropped it an octave, probably.
No, that's just how I sing. You know, it's
well, yeah, but I'm saying you dropped it from the original.
Sure. I started off dropped, and then I think when it kind of kicks in, the vocal ramps up to match the drama and the passion of the lyrics. So yeah, by the end, when it's literally hitting the "We Can Be Heroes" part, that's quite close to the top of my range. So it's difficult for me, I guess. So I'm again very grateful that you enjoy it. So
I do. Ashton, how old were you when you knew that? I mean, you had a gift, and that music was something that you wanted to pursue. That you said, "This is what I have to do."
I think when other kids were playing cops and robbers and whatever, and I was imagining myself in music videos in the back garden, I think that's when I thought that's pretty much the path for me. I think the person who opened it up for me was Elvis. That was my first hero.
Oh wow, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, my first live performance was singing Blue Suede Shoes to my unsuspecting second grade class. So I think I was just singing to myself, and the teacher was sort of, would you like to share that with the class, hoping I'd just shut up, and I stood up and sang Blue Suede Shoes, and the dream was born. And I've just enjoyed singing ever since. I didn't pursue it in school. My school life didn't really encourage the arts, and in fact we were discouraged. But it's one of those things that if it's in you, it ends up defining you, and pursuing that passion has defined me, I suppose.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because, CARLO doesn't probably know this about me, but that Elvis was probably my first musical influence as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so cool. People talk about the Beatles with the girls at the airport and going crazy, but
Ed Sullivan show appearance and stuff. Yeah.
But I saw that same type of footage with Elvis 5 years earlier. I mean, I wasn't alive at the time, but I saw the footage.
Right.
And
for me, that the black leather, the 68 comeback.
68 comeback special was great.
And again, I'm not old enough to have seen it in 68, but I saw the rerun on TV when I was very, very small. And you're looking for trouble, with the way it starts. It was just, me there. Yeah, I want to be that guy.
Yeah. Well, he was really cool. He was very, honestly, this isn't an Elvis chat, but I think the 68 comeback special led to his death because it was so successful. He found himself competing with the likes of Led Zeppelin, even if it was only in his own mind.
Right.
And it was difficult for him. That's, because that 68 comeback special was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And especially the black leather sit down.
Oh, yeah, he looked great.
I have the mega extended. I'm sure we all do, the DVD that's got all the extended bits and the extra bits, and just watching that and how self-deprecating he is, and just
Well,
silly.
see, you two guys are the musicians. I'm the comedian, but I have to say that my first experience to music was Elvis. I played his records, I collected magazines, and then it's weird. I went from Elvis to Highway to Hell album for AC/DC. So I took a left turn somewhere and went straight. But
Yeah.
now, Ashton, you were in The Awakening and you did an album with The Accused, and then you have a solo album. How different were those three different periods in your life as far as musically? Was it basically the same music, or it sort of changed? Or
Well, I attempted again. I think part of it being so influenced by Bowie, I loved the way he tried on different styles and influences and genres and whatever. And I quite fancied that idea myself, except I tried to do it in parallel instead of sequentially. So what I would do is after the third, and The Awakening was essentially all me. On most of the albums, I'm playing everything, I write everything, and I sing everything. Control freak, It's just. It's also easy when it comes to splitting royalties, right?
yeah, right.
And I just found that after 3 albums as that, I just wanted to do something completely different. So I created my first solo album was called The Slender Nudes, and it had like kind of a glam rock, as in a Ziggy T-Rex kind of glam rock era mixed with an 80s new romantic thing, because I felt like doing that. And then the next solo album was a homage to Lou Reed and sort of dirty rock and roll. And it's just been, my solo albums enabled me to really just do whatever I wanted to do outside of what I'd essentially created as The Awakening, what people were, expecting. And again, it's just all of this happened under the rock in my back garden, because you don't know what I'm talking about. But it was a big rock, and it was Johannesburg. And yeah, we did remarkably well. I mean, I got to headline really big festivals and do all of that stuff. It just happens to be in Johannesburg. So, news of that doesn't always travel across the ocean, I guess.
Right.
Especially in the late 90s, early 2000s, which is when I was doing a lot of that. And so to try and answer your question more accurately, The Awakening still has it, because I've still put out Awakening albums. It's more of it still flies a kind of a gothic rock flag and a dark rock. There are all sorts of influences in there. It can be more on the metal side, or it can be more on the electronic side. It just depends on the album and what I'm in the mood for, I suppose.
Right.
And the solo albums, I used to make them intentionally as far removed from that as possible. And I think in more recent years, as you get older and as I've just put out a lot of work, the lines do start to blur. And I especially noticed on the last solo album, I was blonde at the time, so the music was completely different. And that was called Some Kind of Satellite. And there were songs on there that probably could have happily existed on Awakening albums, and vice versa. So right. I'm less concerned these days. It just, to me, this album, I'm less concerned with defining a difference, is what I meant to say. I just, with this album being so personal, I thought, it has to just be a solo album. It can't.
Right. Right.
It doesn't make sense to be anything but a solo album.
With the Steve, you have a question? I'm sorry.
No.
Ashton, with the waiting for a voice, what went into the writing of that? Like, where do you, what's your process as far as like, do you just, when it hits you, you write it down on a piece of paper? Do you lock yourself in a studio until you put something out, or?
I'm a self-diagnosed compulsive songwriter, so it just happens all the time.
That's a lot of albums you got there. Yeah.
A lot of, and I have as many unreleased albums. It's just, and I'm not just saying that, it's a problem. I used to go to groups like, hi, I'm Ashton, I can't stop writing songs. They'd laugh like you are, and that's why I've stopped telling people the story.
Yeah.
And so, what was I saying? Oh yes, writing songs, it's part of my reality. It's just, I think I see everything through a song tinted lens, you could say. I'm always thinking, whether it's movies or books or whatever, there's always some kind of soundtrack developing, and I realize, that doesn't exist. I'm actually writing it, Yeah. With this particular album, I just done a tour with Wayne Hussey from The Mission, and we played 36 shows in 36 different cities across Europe. And I got back and I was tired. But I was also inspired by the fact that we'd just done this tour where my set, it was just me and my guitar, and I'd never done something that intimate before. You know, I usually play with a band, and I've dabbled with the acoustic stuff, but I've never done a whole tour like that. So I was relieved that people weren't running away to the bar halfway through the set, and that gave me, I guess, the confidence to actually make an album that reflected that experience and try to capture that sense of what's the word? It's not a ritual. It's like there's just a community that you experience in those small intimate shows, and I wanted the album to feel like that. Like I'm literally, not in a creepy way, sitting in your room, but just I'm talking to you. The album feels conversational and almost confessional at times, and I think that works best in a very stripped down environment.
Yeah, well, especially now, everyone's starving for music, entertainment, movies, comedy, and this album is just especially with your voice, Ashton. Right now, with this terrible pandemic, you don't want to watch the news because it's so depressing. So I mean, me personally, I'll watch to get the bullet points, and then I'm out. I'm watching TV shows that make me laugh, like Everybody Loves Raymond, and now I'm listening to your album, and I'm listening to stuff that I grew up with in the '80s, REO Speedwagon, Def Leppard, anything I could do to get, just because you put on the news today, it's so depressing. But you're like a breath of fresh air, and I'm so glad that we got the as a radio station and a radio show. We get a lot of submissions, and I'm so glad that I clicked on this. And I was like, I saw the link for the Heroes video, and I was from the first line. I'm like, whoa! I'm like, this dude, I got to get this guy on the show. But I mean, like you said before, you're a self-exile, songwriter. So I would imagine with this downtime, stuff must be flying out of you.
Yeah,
20 unreleased albums.
Yeah. Something like that, yeah. It's I mentioned earlier, I decided with this, after that tour, getting back and starting to write and just feeling like trying to capture that essence. I started feeling that a lot of the songs really look great on a page in an independent sense. So I thought, how about I write a book to go with this? And because my wife's been nagging me to write a book for years, so I thought it was good a time as any, and started with the songs as poems. Oh, there you go. You have one too. I also have one. Wow. We'll look at yours though.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sending us all this great stuff. I didn't get a chance to look at this, but I'm gonna rip into it any day now. It's just so, it's just unbelievable. I'm still reeling from everything.
Did you design this as a package to help sell the music? Because I mean, it's harder and harder to sell physical music anymore.
Mm-hmm. I really just wanted the experience of writing, independently of music. The book features a few poems and as well as the song lyrics, but then it's got some short stories and it's got just thoughts and meanderings and whatever. And to me, it's kind of dipping my toe in the writing world. It's just, I've been writing poetry since, I was a child. And whether it's William Blake or Jim Morrison, I've been influenced by so many writers that it just felt like a natural progression for me that I've been putting off for too long. So again, having a little... Look, the pandemic hadn't happened yet when I started writing the book. That kind of, the way it all played out. I still had visions of taking this on the road and, playing in bookstores and doing everything.
Yeah. Right.
And instead we're doing this sort of thing, but at least we get to chat about it, right? And hopefully people still experience the work and hopefully they can find solace in the art, I think that's what one of art's functions anyway, is to console and to uplift and to challenge and inspire, and that's what it's done for me. So I try to kind of give back a little with this. So I don't know, did I answer your question or did I get lost again?
No, I love what you're
Question
saying.
leads to where it leads. It's fine.
Right,
Carlo, I want to thank you for introducing me to Ashton because, I mean, we both started with Elvis and we both wrote poetry as children. And
right.
I see
Oh,
some.
I didn't know that. You did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I used to make family greeting cards. I designed the whole card, including the.
You did like Adam Sandler did on Mr. Deeds. You were
No,
trying
I
to make one.
haven't.
You know, it's funny you say that though, Ashton, about the poetry because you know, now that I think about it, that's what it sounds like. You're singing poetry. It's not even like lyrics. I mean, it's lyrics, but it just seems like you put a poem that you wrote, and the best thing about it is the accentuation with the baritone voice. It's coming from some place that you can't even begin to imagine. You know what I'm saying? And that's the beauty of the essence of your songs.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, and that was intentional. I mean, I can't work the baritone so well in this interview because I'm having to shout at the computer. I'd have to get really close to get all, central. We don't want to excite people too. No, anyway, yeah, it did feel that creating that space where you can lose and or find yourself has always been. I mean, it sounds trite, but it's always been important to me. And creating atmospheres and textures, and more than just a backdrop for words, it's a place for the words to dwell. And I think that's the difference. I just wanted to keep the voice and the words center stage on this one and not get caught up in all the production stuff that I've been guilty of, especially with my more, rock oriented albums where you just throw everything into it. And before you know it, the voice is sitting somewhere, in the distance. And again, I wanted this to feel more intimate. So you have to strip it away for that.
That's true, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, I think with the way that we record nowadays, there's unlimited tracks. So people are compelled to keep laying down stuff when you can make a rock record with like 7 tracks,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's 5 on the drums,
This question is for both of you. Do you think that a lot of artists lose sight of the fact that it's their voice that's selling the record, and they tend to like overdo it with overdubs and stuff like that to take away from the voice?
Depends on what it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think with some artists it's better that way. You don't really want to.
Remember Johnny Bravo from the Brady Bunch?
Yeah, right.
You go a little further back, and then artists that I keep coming back to. I always feel like I just want to turn the voice up a little more. It's just because we mentioned Bowie early on, and there's so many. I mean, I'm a big Cat Stevens fan, and
oh wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess people assume that I like certain things because of some of the music I put out, but it's. I was telling someone on that same tour we did a little impromptu, not impromptu for them because they obviously knew about it. It was an interview for a Polish television show, and she was asking me something about music, and I told her about my love for Cat Stevens and how I was telling the other guys how it's my shaving music before I go. And I thought there's some irony in the fact that Cat with his big beard and I use it to shave too. But be that as it may, Cat Stevens was played like every single day on tour. And, it's just something very soothing for me listening to Cat Stevens. And I don't want to keep bringing it all back to this particular album because it has got kind of folky elements, and I suppose there are. Yeah, you can hear people have mentioned Leonard Cohen, or they hear whatever it is. I mean, it's whatever your frame of reference is. And
Right.
I think
people don't understand. It's very important the music that you shave to. When I was a teenager, one of the early shaving experiences, I had Ted Nugent on, and I lost my ear.
Yeah,
I got the cartilage on that little nub. It's like, oh man, stranglehold. Oh.
Yeah, and similarly, the first time I watched The Wall, I didn't stop shaving. I just kept going, and I took the eyebrows off and the whole thing.
Awesome.
Now, out of your whole discography, Ashton, I mean, this album is great, and I know you got to throw your support behind it. Do you have a personal favorite of all your body of work so far that you've done, or
the next one?
Honestly, yes, I think every artist will have to say their new work, and I am most happy with this because it reflects exactly where I am right now. And I think and I will add another album to your question. I'm not just going to keep talking about this one, but there's a satisfaction when I think your art lines up with where you actually are. Because for someone who writes a lot, I feel like I'm always playing catch up. Like I'm putting out an album that I was really passionate about 3 years ago, and now I'm finally putting it out. So this has been great for me. It's very cathartic to have it out there while I'm feeling it so strongly. I I was very happy with the previous one too. Some kind of satellite. I mean, as I said, I'm blonde and a lot more androgynous looking in that one than I am at present. But it's still me, and I think that those songs, it has a more of a, I think I'm dabbling more with a new romantic kind of 80s fixation on that one. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And for The Awakening, there's an album called Tales of Absolution and Obsoletion. And that was the second last Awakening album. And I think it was probably the most realized as far as a dark, I have a song called The Dark Romantics. I was going to say a dark romantic, but you know, it's got that romantic, dark, epic. I think someone said it's music that makes angels and vampires weep for wanting, or something like that, you know. And I thought, yeah, that's about it. That's what I was going to put on the sticker.
Yeah, I've been playing catch up with, you know, speaking of catch up, I've been listening to a lot of your older stuff, the new stuff. And I like Murder Me.
Oh yeah, that's on Ashton Nyte Accused.
We all want to murder you, bro.
You know, now going forward, Ashton, then this album's out and you're probably focused on already putting out the next album. Will you cover additional artists, or you're going to focus on just writing all brand new stuff?
I think both. You know, I enjoy interpreting songs that I've been listening to for a long. I like, you know, breathing new. My very first hit, actually ever, that started my career, is I did a dark Gothic version of The Sound of Silence back in 1997.
Yes.
And that put my band on the map in South Africa. The South African map. It put us on the South African map. And then other songs launched us internationally. But taking that sort of idea and just putting your spin. I don't like covers that are too faithful to the original. I kind of feel, what's the point, really?
Well, it's definitely better than the original. I mean, I liked I forgot about that. I did listen to that today. I liked that version, and I liked Disturbed's version of Sound of Silence. Those two are better than the original. Not to take away from, you know, Simon and Garfunkel, but you know, if you choose to cover someone in the future, who would you consider to do, you know, in the next album?
I actually like the idea of singing female songs made famous by female vocalists. You can't see it now because you've cropped her out, but there's a Kate Bush record behind me. I'm a massive Kate Bush fan, so.
Oh wow, interesting.
I'd be she's anyway, she's there. So she watches over me in the studio and reminds me she's very inspirational, I should say. She's just to me, she's my female equivalent of Bowie. You know, she's all through my school life. It was Bowie and Kate Bush. They were sort of the parental figures for me, for my artistic genesis. And she has a song. I actually won't give the game away, but there's a song of hers that I've been trying to do justice to for the last few months.
So she's like your muse, right?
She is.
Yeah.
She reminds me to stay true to being an artist. Honestly, that's in my mind anyway. I have a few little reminders in the studio, whether it's to keep it real. I mean, I've got a giant Elvis poster right there, which you can't see. He reminds me to keep it real.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you were saying earlier on. With there's so many options in the studio with tracks and plugins and all of that. Similarly, if you're able to, I'm blessed to be able to write so many different styles and different treatments and whatever, but it can also be a curse because you can also just do things because you can do them instead of it being the thing you have to do, you know. And I'm trying to, as my life runs out and in my twilight years now, I try to to spend that time doing things that I can do and and really focus on the things I have to do, because I just don't want to leave the earth until I've done certain things, right?
Right. No, I don't blame you. Steve, you have anything?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's funny that you cropped your stuff out too. He's got Gene Simmons all over the place.
Like, actually, Gene Simmons is there in the background, or just pictures?
No, he just has his face everywhere.
Well, I'm a big Kiss fan. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and but I do have the beautiful album that's going to go on our studio wall. Where's the camera here? There you go. And that's the new album, Waiting for a Voice. And I really, really encourage everyone, if you want to listen to true talent, go to his website. It's Ashton Nyte, NYTE.com, and you'll find out about this amazing gentleman. And I want everybody to pick up a copy of Waiting for a Voice. Let's support the arts. Now, Ashton, and I mean this in the best possible sense. You grew up in South Africa. Was there a lot of? Did you have a lot? And I know music is worldwide, but did you have a lot of exposure to music, or was it once you left South Africa that you started to get more and more familiar with stuff?
No, I grew up in a music-obsessed household. My dad was a massive fan of music, and my parents were not musicians in that sense, but they were huge. And my mom still is. They're huge music lovers, and I think that's probably the best gift my dad could have given me. Is just growing up, whether it was the things you'd expect, the Beatles and the Stones and all of that, and obviously Elvis and Springsteen, and I mean so many things, so many artists. My Cat Stevens love started as a child as well. And then you go on and you discover, you move through Zeppelin and the Doors and all. I mean, to me, that's the wonderful thing about the palette of rock and roll is, I mean, there's so much to choose from, and you mix it and you add little bits and pieces and it becomes yours. If you're, and then you've got so many canvases that you can put, that you can then paint on and so on and so on. And yeah, so no, South Africa's always had a big. It was, especially when I was growing up, was a huge American and European influence. So we a lot of songs on the radios that Americans aren't familiar with. A band like a-ha had more than one hit in South Africa, for example.
Right.
Yeah, they only know. It's just and conversely, I didn't know Jesse's Girl until I came to America. So, it's so many of these things are cultural. I mean, all over Europe. I mean, I mentioned in my post about being on here tonight that I mentioned David Hasselhoff, and there's an example of a man who's really well known in Germany.
He's international, unbelievable. Yeah,
specifically in Germany for singing. And I mentioned him because I'm in a project called Beauty in Chaos, which features it's put together by Michael Cervolo, who is the president of Schecter Guitars, and he was guitarist for Human Drama and for Gene Loves Jezebel, and he's got a project called Beauty in Chaos where he writes the music and then he approaches different singers to write the words and sing them. And he kindly approached me, and I wrote the 3 songs for the debut, including the title track. But there's also Robin Zander from Cheap Trick's on there.
That's all you had to tell him, Steve, was Cheap Trick.
You're the one wearing the shirt.
Yeah. I actually sing backing vocals on the Robin Zander track along with Michael Anthony from Van Halen. So I mean,
really?
Yeah, and Simon Gallup from The Cure is on there.
Oh, wow.
T's on there, and Zach Wilde's on there. I mean, it's
that's a super group, man.
Yeah, right.
And it's
funny you mentioned Bruce Springsteen, because he's basically a neighbor of ours, and I didn't think anybody knew him in South Africa. I thought he was a regional.
No. We're quite familiar with your neighbor, Bruce.
Well, I envision Bruce Springsteen can sell out the Giant Stadium 5 nights in a row in New Jersey, but I figured he played like little theaters in in the rest of the world.
No, in Johannesburg, I mean, I was already living here by the time he played. I mean, I had to come in. I literally had to move to America to watch Bruce Springsteen, you know. But since I've lived here, I think he played, I don't know how many years, 5 or 6 years ago, he played the biggest stadium we have there in Johannesburg. So no, South Africans are quite familiar with the boss, you know.
Yeah, I was only kidding. Carlo, edit that so Bruce don't get mad at me.
I'm going to send it to him.
I mean, he's your neighbor. He could just show up at any time during the show. And just,
yeah. But, you know, it's amazing what you're doing, and anything we can do to support you. You have an open door. Are you still in South Africa now, or you're in the United States?
No. I'm here in St. Louis, Missouri, right in the middle of the United States.
I could tell.
Oh, wow.
You could tell what?
I could tell by your accent.
Oh yeah.
Are you? You're not in the middle of that hurricane, are you?
No.
Okay.
When local people say, you know, you have an accent, you're not from here, I always say, no, I'm from Texas.
That's exactly what I was meaning.
He's got comedy chops too now too. Not only can he sing, he can make you laugh. Yeah. But you know, Ashton, I know you got to go you got another interview at 9:00, and I want to thank Damon from Intervention for making this possible. And like I said, Ashton, anything we can do to help you promote this album, I encourage everybody that's listening, and especially all our men and women overseas that listen to us via American Forces Network. Please pick up this album. If you don't enjoy it, then there is something really wrong with you guys. I'll tell you right now.
We're going to be great people to get it.
I'm going to use that on the next press release. It's just that if you don't enjoy it, there's something really wrong with you.
That's awesome.
You know, because good music is the bottom line, Ashton. Good music is good music, and if they can't sense that, then you know what? If you can't realize that that's a good album, then don't buy it. You know. But go to AshtonNyte.com and you get the CD, and it's a whole package, right? It's the book and the vinyl album.
Yeah, and the vinyl. You haven't opened yours yet. Have you opened the vinyl?
No, I'm afraid to. I'm like, you know.
Not to show us. It's a thing of great beauty. I'm very.
Oh wait, okay.
It's only my second vinyl I've ever made. You see, so I'm very. Yeah, but wait. Okay. It gets even better when you take it out the little thing.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh wow, okay, I see what you're saying. Wow.
Look at that. There you are.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I thought I might never have a gold record, so I'll get something that looks like a gold record from.
That's a great idea.
Just looks like the one that Elvis used to have on his wall with his name on it. He used to have
actually, that is one of Elvis's. If you go to Graceland now, you'll notice there's a gap. That's the one I took, but
just one missing on the wall. But yeah, this is definitely going to be preserved, and I want to thank you again for sending this to us. It really means a lot to us. You know what I'm saying? It means just as much to me as any other album I have, because I am an 80s junkie, and you can't see it, but the wall to my left here is. It's filled with all original vinyl from the 80s, or like ZZ Top and Quiet Riot, Billy Idol, Def Leppard, Ozzy, Queen, Madonna, the Go-Go's. You didn't hear me say that, heavy metal, France. But you know, anything from the 80s. That's where I grew up on, and that's my love. You know what I'm saying? I'm hoping the 80s come back, but I don't think they're going to come back. So.
Yeah, I hear you. The lots are wonderful. I mean, you're more on the rock side. You didn't mention Duran Duran, for example, or Echo and the Bunnymen, guys like that. I mean, I think those are some of my 80s favorites, along with that you just mentioned. Except I'd go Bangles over Go-Go's, but you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Susanna Hoffs over Belinda Carlisle any day of the week,
any night.
Yeah.
Now the children are watching.
When this is over, the pandemic, Ashton, do you plan on getting out on the road and starting touring?
Oh, oh yes, I cannot wait. I've done 2 virtual shows, you know, the Facebook Live thing, and
right.
I appreciate everyone being so kind and, you know, showing up and caring, but man, it's not the real thing. The energy of the room and all the rest of it. Yes, I very much plan on touring. Like so many artists, I had a tour that was mostly confirmed that had to be indefinitely postponed.
Yeah,
and
that's a shame.
The European tour, but I will be touring the States as well with this album when it's safe to do so. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? If you happen to get over to the Northeast, New York or New Jersey, please let us know. I'd love
Yeah,
to
I was
come out
going
and
to say
see
that
you.
at the moment. Yeah. Maybe we'll bring Bruce with us. Maybe he'll show up.
Yeah, right?
Let's just go next door now. Just put in a word.
I need a cup of sugar anyway.
What's that?
But,
I need to borrow a cup of sugar. We always
Yeah,
go
right.
to Bruce for that.
Yeah, I'm sure Patty's really upset at this point. Sugar in the house.
she's going to let the dogs out after us. We keep going on their property.
Yeah.
But once again, Ashton Nyte, AshtonNyte.com. That's AshtonNYTE.com. Please pick up Waiting for a Voice. It was released in July of this year, and it's a fantastic album, and I think it's our album of the year. I'm gonna say this officially now. This is the album of the year. You're my artist of the year, the most impressive artist, and I want to thank you so much. And thank you again for on behalf of the troops who are in forward areas, and it's music like this that's getting them through. So believe me, I just want you to know that we are listening, we do hear it, and we can't wait to come and see you live.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful chatting to you both. Thank you so much for having me on.
Hey, Ashton, can you give us a promo? I'm Ashton Nyte, and you're listening to Animal House Radio.
Absolutely. I need to put on my big sexy voice. I'm going to have to move closer to the screen.
All right.
All right. I'm Ashton Nyte, and you're listening to Animal House Radio.
I like that. Look at that. One take. Look at that. Is he a professional or what, Steve?
Yeah, man. Hey, have you ever done any voiceover work?
Yeah, I confess I have actually. Yes.
Oh, that's a big money. Don't.
Yeah, no. I mean,
that's a lucrative industry. Let me
that
tell
is,
you.
right?
In South Africa, just before I left, when I finally figured out how to make real money, just before I left, I was doing. They'd hire me in to do sound alikes for radio. So they to save on publishing royalties or some kind of royalty, they needed an Iggy Pop to do an Iggy Pop song. So my name came up, not too much of a stretch there, and then I sang the passenger for something advertising insurance or something. And, so they liked that, so they kept asking me back, and it kept stretching, and I did Michael Hutchins from In Excess, and I did the Stranglers. It got really diverse, and I knew it was going kind of strange when I did Bjork at one point. So I thought, I've never really thought of myself as a huge Bjork voice, but you never know until you try, right? So,
Yeah,
absolutely. Hey, man.
John Bush, that was singing for Anthrax, and he came out of Armored Saint. He actually quit Anthrax. He was like the voice of Burger King. He was that king.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that, I know, Carl, you've seen that creepy king.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. You don't make voiceovers is a very, especially if you got a voice like Ashton's.
Yeah.
That's so he can make hundreds of thousands and possibly more with his voice.
How about you be my agent?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Maybe if you can sound like Carlo, we can just.
If he sounds like me, he'll be out of business in 5 minutes. I'll just go up to the guy. Listen, you're going to hire this guy, or there's going to be a problem.
You're going to hire me, or you're going to put the boss on them. He's going to send Bruce over.
Yeah, but. Yeah. Anytime you got an open door to come on, Ashton. Even if you're not promoting it, if you just want to come on and shoot the breeze with us, you're always welcome here, as all our artists are. And I want to please stay safe and keep putting out that great music. And like I said, anything we could do, you just tell Damon, and it's done.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. On behalf of myself and Killer Keller, I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. 2 great interviews, 2 phenomenally talented artists right here on Animal House Radio. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all next time right here on Animal House Radio. Thanks, Ashton.
Thank you.
All right, Killer. I'll see you in a few minutes.